Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Dola Roy, the Documentation and Communication Officer at Nature, Environment and Wildlife Society. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to this significant event on World Fisheries Day 2023, jointly organized by News and ICRCIFE Kolkata Center. So, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and esteemed speakers, as we embark on this insightful journey, it is my honor to invite Mr. Vishwajit Roy Chaudhuri, our beloved Secretary at News and an esteemed member of the State Wildlife Advisory Board, to grace us with a warm welcome address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, Today is the World Fisheries Day, and uh, on this occasion, we have arranged this webinar, and our collaborative partner is ICAR CP Kolkata, and we are grateful to them for joining hands with us. World Fisheries Day is a global initiative aimed at raising awareness about uh, critical importance of fisheries and aquaculture. In the Indian context, it emphasizes the urgency of adopting sustainable practices of aquaculture to address challenges such as overfishing and habitat preservation and responsible uh, ecosystem management. So, in this August gathering, I welcome to you all, uh, especially my thanks to Dr. T.K. Ghoshal, a principal scientist and head ICAR CP Kolkata, Professor Kaushik Ghosh, Professor Department of Zoology, University of Bardhaman, Dr. Gourango Biswas, Senior Scientist, ICAR CP Kolkata Center. We will be enlightened by their insights, and before I leave, we are again thankful to the all other participants who are present here, and throughout the this workshop we will be expecting good deliberations and good so that we can enhance our knowledge by that. Thanking you.
Without further ado, may I kindly invite Dr. T.K. Ghoshal, Principal Scientist and Head, ICR CIFE Kolkata Center, to share the opening remarks. Sir, please.
Good afternoon to all, mainly all the professionals, students, farmers, and other stakeholders who has participated in this virtual workshop today, which is being jointly organized by ICAR, Central Institute of Fisheries Education, Kolkata Center, and Nature, Environment and Wildlife Society, Kolkata, which is popularly known as News, Kolkata. So we are very closely associated. So once again, a very warm welcome to all the participants and to all the panelists and everybody. So, as rightly our Mr. Dai Chaudhary had told, okay, we are celebrating World Fisheries Day. So we know all that fisheries play a vital role in the global food security and nutrition, no? And which is providing more than 20% of the animal protein intake globally, and nearly 3 billion people worldwide. So there's a global perspective, that is very important. But if we see our Indians perspective, the fisheries sector is recognized as a sunrise sector with tremendous potential for fostering equitable and inclusive growth through the economic empowerment of vulnerable sections of the society with an 8% share in global fish production. So this year, our World Fisheries Day, and whatever theme is there, I'll come later on. So we are mainly addressing the small scale artisanal these things, fishermen, small scale fisheries, and in India, those are the major share of the major stakeholders of our fisheries fraternity, and we all know that India is ranks as the world's third largest fish producer. So total fish production we are third, but aquaculture we are second largest. After China, we are the second largest and largest shrimp producer as on date, largest shrimp producer, and fourth largest seafood exporter. So, and our Indian fisheries sector that has experienced a consistent growth over the last few decades, last 3 4 decades, we are experiencing near about 10% annual growth, which no sector, no agriculture sector is having. So definitely, uh, our goal is to achieve fish production target, which is set by our honorable Prime Minister in the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana for 22 million metric tons of fish production and 1 lakh crore worth of export earnings by the fiscal year 2024-25. So we have been given a very good target, 22 million metric tons, which is a very good target, and we achieved near about 18 to 19, near about 19 million metric tons. So another 3 million metric tons we have to go within this another 2 years. That is the target. And so our fishery sector as a whole it is growing very nicely. Lot of stakeholders, all the perspectives it is nice. But however, this sector is also facing several challenges, and our fish biodiversity are getting depleted alarmingly due to some of the factors like one is over exploitation or overfishing, habitat destruction, pollution, tourism, and another most important is the introduction of invasive exotic species along the alien pathogens and parasites. We know that India government also permitted our through our policy, we have permitted a lot of exotic species, but that is government permission. But without permission also, with some though we don't want, but some of the invasive species, exotic species also entered in our ecosystem. That is the one of the biggest threat to our Indian water total water ecosystem and fisheries. And we are having near about 13.6% total fish diversity as exotic fish species. So to highlight this importance of sustainable fisheries management, as rightly our Chaudhary sir told, that our need of the year is sustainable fisheries. You have to go sustainable fisheries. And to maintain healthy water ecosystem, World Fisheries Day is celebrated on 21st November by the fishing communities and other stakeholders across the globe. And our country is also celebrating fervently this by organizing one global fisheries conference India 2023, which has started yesterday, and today also deliberation is going on, and our all ministers they're addressing this event is being held in Ahmedabad, and theme is that celebrate the fisheries and aquaculture wealth by the Department of Fisheries, Ministry of Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairying, Government of India, who is hosting the program. And in this perspective, it is worthy to mention that this year, theme of World Fisheries Day, as I told, build enabling policy environments for small scale artisanal fisheries. Means we are addressing the small scale farmers. With this backdrop, today's very pertinent workshop is entitled as Indiscriminate Introduction of Invasive Alien Species Threats to the Native Fish Species, which will address the second biggest threat to global biodiversity just after habitat destruction. If you think that habitat destruction is number one, this thing's concern. Second major concern is that our invasive alien fish species or some other invasive alien species. We know alien species is that species which is introduced outside their natural habitat and then subsequently they survive and they breed in the system. And invasive means out of this alliance species, some of the species introduction, they lead to threaten the biodiversity of the region and habitat. That is called invasive alliance species. And nowadays, globally, the invasive alliance species is a very big threat globally. And in India also, so far 31 aquaculture species, 600 ornamental varieties, and 2 species of larvaceous fish has been identified and introduced. So many native species, including our Indian major crops, rohu, katla, mrigel, in various different systems, critically declined, depleted over the years. So this is a very big major concern, and commercially important exotic species is there. And out of that, all the species, some of the species we know, African catfish, Gladius, Gadibrinas, and then we know nowadays very big threat in India, in our West Bengal also, in our West Bengal wetland. That is the our sucker mouth catfish, that is called crocodile fish. Generally, we keep in our aquarium, but intentionally or unintentionally, not knowing the things, people are releasing this big size sucker mouth when it is not accommodating the aquarium. They are putting in the some wetlands or some ponds or some domestic ponds, and they are subsequently grown. So they are the very big threats. So and this sucker mouth catfish, this breeds very profusely, and this is for no use. This cannot be consumed by the peoples. So these are things. And few days back also, some of the sucker mouth catfish I got from the wetland, out East Kolkata wetland. So we are trying to dry the things after killing, and then we are trying to put that in the animal feed as a fish meal. So that way also we are trying to use that things, alien fish. So this type of alliance invasive species, if introduced in intentionally or unintentionally into our natural ecosystem, natural water bodies, wetlands, so definitely this will put a very big threat to our biodiversity. Already we have lost so many species. So in the coming days, we don't want to lose any more species, and definitely our policyholders, our different government bodies, they should make awareness, because people doesn't know, they do not aware about the possible threats of this invasive alien species. So we know, so that way policymakers and our government bodies, and like our NGOs like news and government officers like ICRCP, our Badon University, our Professor Kaushik Ghosh is there. So we jointly all have major responsibility to make the peoples aware of the things, that what could be the possible fate of invasive species which enters in the ecosystem. Because our aquatic trade, now ornamental trade, that is also big threat, because with ornamental trade, so many species, 100 species comes from other countries. If you go to other means developed countries, it is not allowed. But in our India, that much policy is not there. Our border is porous. We have big borders with Bangladesh, with some neighboring countries. So that border is very porous. So definitely we should have strong measures from government level, from NGO level. And after this workshop, definitely we should make some policy papers. Some of the things, whatever will come out from the deliberations, we should convey to the government agencies, maybe state government, central government, so that at least people will be first make aware of the positive impact. And we should also have very good database about what are the alien species, invasive species there, whether they are exotic species, whether they are really alien, they are invasive, and what are the impact, scientific impact, negative impact in our ecosystems we are seeing. So that thing scientifically also, as scientists, we should also develop a good database. Our students should work in this angle, do some research in this angle, so that jointly we can fight this biggest threat. And definitely, I hope with these deliberations, we'll come to a conclusive end how to tackle this matter. And I could see that our some eminent speakers like our Professor Kaushik Ghosh from the Badon University, and Dr. Gourango Biswas, a scientist, senior scientist of ICRCP Center, and then definitely our Milan Sinha, who is having very good these things, vision over the fishery sector. So definitely, I welcome again all the speakers to deliver it. So I don't want to make a big introduction. So this is a basic introduction. Okay, our fisheries is a very important subject. Sector is going nicely. At the same time, threats are also there. So to conclude, threats are also there. So what are the possible threats? The biggest possible threats is this is the invasive alien species. in our ecosystem, and we all have to jointly fight against these things. Now I think I again I once again welcome all the participants, all the professionals who are seeing this workshop, today's virtual workshop. Of course, we are one day late, but then also we wish a very good deliberations and very good outcome of the workshop. Thank you all. Thank you, News, for at least jointly collaborating with us, with ICR CIFE, and definitely we'll go together. We'll run a long way. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And from the entire team of News, I would like to convey that we are really grateful for this opportunity. And thank you so much for highlighting the importance of today's seminar so beautifully in such a lucid way. Your presence has added a significant value to our webinar today.
Okay.
And now, thank you, sir. Now, let's extend a warm welcome to Ms. Ajanta De, Joint Secretary, News, who will further enrich our understanding of this topic with a keynote address. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dola, and really thank you, Vishwadita. And I'm really grateful to the Vice Chancellor cum Director, Dr. Ravi Shankar, because we have a very long association with ICAR CIFI, and now that Dr. T.K. Ghoshal is heading this as the principal scientist, we look forward to more such collaborations. And Professor Kaushik Ghosh is always with us. Dr. Gaurango Bishash, we always, I know Milan is discussing with you on a lot of issues related to the fishery sector. Now, what I wanted to say is that being a conservation practitioner and working in the sector of nature conservation, we feel that the biodiversity loss, although the UN planetary crisis has declared three major important changes that are going to define the entire that is creating a lot of difference in the entire human systems, in the entire ecosystems, the social, economic, environmental well-being, everything. It is having its impact. So the three planetary crises is the climate change, the pollution and the waste, and the biodiversity loss. And as Dr. Ghoshal has very rightly pointed out, that for the biodiversity loss, we are presently having 30% biodiversity decline globally. The last UN report that has come out, and invasive alien species contribute to 11% of it, the global biodiversity loss. And we know that 50% of our GDP globally is dependent on nature. So we derive all our subsistence of living from the natural ecosystems and its services. The resources there are very, very important for us, human species, also to live. And so in this context, if we look at invasive alien species, now today I just came from the Bengal Global Business Summit, and their policy is declared on the today three policies have been declared, and the third policy was on encouraging inland fishery perspectives. So we have always been telling that capture fisheries, the wild catch, we have to reduce, and from capture to culture, we have to focus our areas of aqua farming, aquaculture more, and we are happy about that. But the problem that we always face is that when we talk about production, we don't think of the sustainability of it. The environmental sustainability point is now becoming very, very important, and it was echoed in all the speakers that we had today, that whatever production, whatever economic GDP we are talking about, if we are not having the sustainability instilled in it, included in it, we will not be doing the justice to us and also our future generations. Now, in this respect, when it comes to inland fishery policy being declared and more stress on the aquaculture, so we know that there would be a stress on to increase the production. So that's always we think about when we talk about some the economics of fishery, economics of agriculture, economics of marine resources, that we need to increase the production. Now, when we increase the production, because as you rightly said, that it is an easy protein for the marginal people, these and that, and a lot of things. But then what we do is we tend to introduce species which are fast growing, maybe, which are more tolerant, I would say, in a lot of difficult, harsh situations. It is more tolerant, and sometimes we make ourselves induced to this logic that they are more susceptible to climate change, adaptability, this and that. But really, is it really going to be a climate change adaptable species when we introduce a species like that? Like you were telling, the magur species that we have, which has become a very threat onto the entire inland water systems. So these sort of things, when we need to talk about that, what would be the fishes? Because I know that when there is a stress on the public policy to have more aquaculture, then fast growing species that grows very easily, that is susceptible to a little, maybe a little urohaline, maybe a little fresh water, also a little bit of brackish water, so tolerance level is more. So that is the reason we all also have the banamai instead of our great Penis monodon. The logic behind all this is all this, that it grows fast, it tolerates this salinity, and we know what we are doing to our indigenous species. So here, uh, since I have the opportunity to address the most premier education institute of India on the fisheries respect, that is the Central Institute of Fisheries Education. So I would take this opportunity to take a call, to let you take the call that when such species are being introduced, the scientists and the academia should be very, very careful on what is happening, and it should not be reactive, it should be proactive. That once the damage is done and then we start thinking that what is going to happen is not the right approach. Now we have to be proactive and understand the possible implications, the impact that it can create, and make out policy documents to that effect, so that the public servants who are working with this are aware, are sensitized. Because most of the time I have found that the administration is not aware that, okay, this is an invasive, if we are doing this, this can happen. So the scientific community, the academia, and the institutes, the premier institutes, have this role to play, to have these policy documents come out, and to influence them that, okay, we can do this, but these are the consequences we have to face. I will just give you two examples, like rightly you said about the crocodile fish. So crocodile fish, you know, that is East Kolkata wetland. In fact, 2, 3, 4 days before, I was there to do a work, and I saw the every time we see. So maybe lack of awareness is there when we are doing ornamental fish on in our aquariums and all that, and whoever are managing all these issues, we need to talk to them, or we need to talk to the customers who are doing this, that if you do this, then be careful that you have to take this to this level. If it dies, or if it is, don't just let it loose in the water bodies, wetlands near to you, or in the drain, because it can go into the water systems that we have, because these are all interconnected water, river, and rivulet systems. So in this way, I think that awareness and, as you said, data on which are the invasive, what is the impact, has to be more. We need more such documents to come out in the form of literature, flyers, and we can be part of that awareness. News has the mandate to create awareness on these issues. The reason why we are, intent on doing this program with SIFI. So one more thing I would like to say, share an example, is that there was we suffer from a lot of dengue, malaria, and this chikungunya, which are all vector-borne diseases, and malaria and mosquito is one of the mosquito, and there is one of the vectors there. And in this context, I remember, and as an organization, we are always talking of nature-based solutions. Otherwise, you would spray DDT and all that, and lose the mosquito larvae, along with it, a lot of other species in the wetlands, in whatever water bodies it is being sprayed. So we constantly advocate for nature-based solutions. And in one such meeting, I remember there was a suggestion that, okay, let us introduce guppy, because guppy takes away the mosquito larva. And immediately our head of the government also declared a circular. Yes, so guppy breeding and guppy cultivation would start in almost all the water bodies. So some 2 billion guppies are required to eradicate, because it's a nature-based solution, which is very welcome decision. But we started our fisheries team with Milan as the head, and we have very strong team, Orijit, Vijayan, and Vivian said that, okay, but guppy is not a native species, so are we not introducing invasive and alien species? And immediately we started talking and with the academia, with the scientists, and to my utter surprise, I found that yes, we also, I was inquiring them that what is the indigenous species that we have that can combat guppy, that we won't want guppy, okay, but let us have our indigenous species being bred and cultivated. And we found that we had originally that Techokhamaj, there's Apocalus, Panchax, you know better. You are the fishery specialist. I come from the nature conservation background. So when I was discussing with them that why can't we breed all this, so they were telling me that Didi, we do not have the standardized protocol for all these. So I was thinking that so there is a research gap also. So the scientific community, the universities should come up with all these scientific researches that gap the practical solutions that can really have meaningful impact in implementing nature-based solutions, because ultimately we did not have a solution in spite of my telling that we want a nature-based solution. We did not have a solution, and we ultimately said to the government, okay sir, you please do it, because we really do not have the solution, but do not do it in an open water system like in Sundarban, where you can do and it can go into the water system and it can mingle and do whatever it can do, and we do not know the impact. You can do in closed water bodies which are closely monitored, which can be very which do not have interconnectedness, and so we can go for that. We breed and then we collect, and then okay, we have nature-based solutions. So you see, whenever we talk about biodiversity loss, we talk about nature-based solutions, but it's not always that we have the scientific the call for that. So the scientific research community, the academia, should come in and rope in these gap areas and really find solutions which are practical and that can be replicable, that can sustain. And with this, I think I should not take much of the time, because you are all waiting to hear to Dr. Gaurango Vishwas and Professor Kaushik Ghosh, and I too. And I hope we will all learn. And my humble contribution today would be that together we should fight the biodiversity loss. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, madam, for giving us the true essence of today's webinar. What is the importance of it? So without any further delay, we shall start our first technical session. Today, we are so privileged to have Dr. Gaurango Vishwas, Senior Scientist, ICR CIFE Kolkata Center, as a keynote speaker for this session. Dr. Vishwas holds a PhD from the prestigious University of Miyazaki, Japan, and has made outstanding contributions to fisheries development since joining ICR in 2007. His expertise spans in the field of captive breeding, seed production, grow-out culture of various fish species, polyculture, and organic shrimp farming. With 75 published papers, 2,100 plus citations, and numerous awards, he currently serves as a chief editor for the prestigious Journal of Applied Ichthyology and holds editorial roles in several other international journals. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Gaurango Vishwas to this technical session. The stage is all yours, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Dola. Thank you, the organizer and my
fish CIFE authorities, and also the all my respected seniors. Professor Ghosh is there. So I'll directly come to the topic. So little bit technical things in this we will discuss on this topic: indiscriminate introduction of invasive alien species threats to the native fish species. So this is the outline of my presentation: introduction, then species classification, contribution of invasive alien species, impact of IAS, then mitigation measures, then conclusion. So, as we already know that this has been highlighted, our aquaculture sector and its contribution. Currently, globally, it is contributing around 50% of the total seafood or total fish production. So, by 2050, the demand is to double it. That is the aquaculture production. So for this, the initially, if we look at back 1960, we can see that that time aquaculture contribution was only 6%, but currently it is around 50%, which is around more than eightfold increase. And with this increase, we could see that it happened due to many reasons. Among that, species diversification is one among them, and along with that, for that diversification, there was the introduction of potential exotic species to in different environments in different countries. So those exotic species became sometimes unexpected entry of some, and they became invasive in nature. So if we technically coming to the classification of the species based on the ecological status and how they fit into a particular geographical region, so we can categorize them into three groups: native or indigenous species, which are the species which historically occurred or currently occurring in an ecosystem, or another group is exotic or alien species, any species including its all the reproductive materials or biological materials which are propagated, which can be propagated into species which are not native to that ecosystem. Those are exotic species. And invasive species, any exotic or alien species, when they cause the economic or environmental harm to human health or the biodiversity, then they are called the invasive species. So this process of introducing of a non-native species to a new ecosystem, that happened due to two ways: accidental introduction or deliberate introduction. So coming to the this little bit elaborative, this indigenous or native species, we know they have some advantages and also some disadvantages also. So advantages are this ecosystem stability, biodiversity, protection, then adaptation, nature. But they have some this disadvantage also, like their tolerance level to a environmental change. Then sometimes they are susceptible to disease and parasites. And then alien species, mostly their advantages are economical benefit and then ecological function. Sometimes they occupy a different niche area, ecological function, they provide service. But disadvantages are invasive potential, and also they can be a carrier of various diseases. So this way, like alien species have some advantages, both way, advantages and disadvantages. So if we look at the exotic or alien species, their contribution to global aquaculture, it is not a very meager amount. It is around 20% of the global aquaculture food production is contributed by exotic species. And some countries are very much dependent on these species. Even if we look at the largest producer of fish, China, Their 25% production is from by this alien exotic species. Philippines around 60%, and then Brazil around half of their production comes from the exotic species. So this is the like few countries, the list where like you can see 100% Laos, they are 100% are exotic species the production. Then Vietnam, Philippines, and all. So this is the list of the top 10 introduced freshwater fish species worldwide, and we can easily identify them in India. Also, they are available. This Oreochromis mozambicus, that tilapia, Mozambique tilapia, then our common carp, Nile tilapia, all these, and they have been introduced in many countries, over 130 to 40 countries. So even in India also, if we look at their contribution also, these are this we know the composite fish culture. For composite fish culture, three exotic species were introduced: grass carp, silver carp, and common carp. And if we look at their contribution is also now very high, around grass carp around 12%, from 6 to 12%. So this is their contribution, exotic species, their contribution in aquaculture, even world aquaculture. So these are the some of the species, exotic food fishes were introduced to India for aquaculture. So some silver carp, golden carp, common carp, then tilapia, two species of tilapia, nilotica and mozambica, then gourami, paku. Recently they came up very high, big, then grass carp, then Pangas, and then African Magu. So around 15 to 20% they are contributed by these fishes, our production, Indian aquaculture production. And inland capture fisheries, if you look at, their existence is very perceptible, up to 10%. Their contribution is there. So now coming to invasive species, so why these exotic species they are called invasive? When they pose a significant threat to the biological diversity, then they are called invasive species. So these species exhibit very rapid growth and reproduction. They possess sometimes aggressive behavior, and then compete with native species, and make the native species they are very difficult to survive, and posing the additional environmental and economical damages. So alien species and invasive species, all alien species are not invasive species, but all invasive species are alien species. So, exotic species or alien species were introduced generally, as I mentioned, for their some of the desirable traits, like to enhance our production or other benefits. But sometimes those exotic species, they dominate and suppress our local biodiversity. So invasive species have their trait. These are some of the traits. They are phenotypic plasticity, then hardy nature, wide food preference, fast growth, rapid reproduction. So due to this, they very well they establish themselves in the new environment. So why should we care about this invasive species? If we look at some of the recent report, even you can see in continent wise, in our from North America to other continents, worldwide, if we see the average, it is around 68% biota loss is there. So sometimes it is looking very alarming. And wildlife population declined from 1970 to 2010. It is around 52% overall decline in wildlife population. So this is a very alarming stage. Why we should give importance to invasive species and their propagation and their management. So this we can they are the as they are alien invasive species. They are the second largest threat to the biodiversity worldwide. Okay, and it economic valuation were made, and that showed how huge the loss, around 300 billion US dollar worldwide, this estimate they have given. So combating invasive species which will protect the biodiversity, and biodiversity protect mitigates the effect of climate change, and if we mitigating climate change, that prevent invasive species. So this is a circle which are interdependent, which all components are interdependent. So invasive species in aquatic ecosystem, if we see, so aquatic animals around 17%, aquatic plants around 5% of the species. So taxonomic representation of this 100 alien species, if we see, so this is the contribution. So among these 100 worst aquatic animal invasive to freshwater, 13 species. So these are the species. Sometimes in some of the countries they are boon, and some of the countries they are nuisance. So we could see worldwide around 200 species have well established non-native population. Our National Biodiversity Authority reported 168 aliens as invasive in India, of which 56 are associated with aquatic ecosystem. Among the aquatic invasive species, 14 are alien fishes. So this is the status in our country. So we already talked about this species in Kolkata wetland, and very less studies have been done, but this is really a menace now here. So, and from a recent paper, it was estimated that per hectare per year loss is around 9 to 10,000 rupees due to this species, that is production loss. So then coming to the invasive species and their impact, ecological impact, they pose many ecological impact: predatory prey interaction, competition, transmission of diseases, habitat impacts, genetic impact, then socio-economic impact. So these are the different impacts. Now coming to little bit elaborative of these items, like ecological impact. So when carnivorous species are introduced to a system or the body, so they may have a cascading ecological effect. This is a best example, the massacre in the Lake Victoria in Africa, when they introduced Nile perch. So they saw that 60% of the lake's native cichlids were wiped out. So financial loss also, because Nile perch is very cheaper compared to the native cichlid, like $5 per kg compared to the native cichlid $40. So very like a catastrophic effect. Another ecological impact they may pose, that competition between these resident species and alien species for food, habitat, mates, and other essential resources. So Oreochromis mozambicus, which were introduced in 1950s in our country, so they also caused some a lot of problem in different our natural bodies, water bodies. We can see this presentation like a native fish depletion and Gobind Sagar Reservoir, uh, which in Himachal Pradesh, where our this exotic carps were introduced, and these Chinese carps, three Chinese carps, this silver carp, grass carp, and common carps, and they constituted around 70 to 90% total production now. So but their competition, silver cup directly compete with the katla production. So there are some data like when silver cup production is less than katla, our native species katla production was higher. So this is an example, and there are some more incidences like our this Oreochromis mozambicus, then Cyprinus carpio, then this silver carp Heteronistis fossilis. So in some of the our natural water bodies, they have established themselves and posing threat to our native species. Even the river Ganga also, Cyprianus carpio, contribute about 20% of total fish population of the river system. Then coming to another, this transmission of diseases, they also cause transmission of diseases, like even our with the some of the disease in brackish water system also, WSSB, and also freshwater system, EUS and others. They came through these some of the this exotic species. Sometimes habitat impact also is there. Common carp, they change the bottom of the pond and the dikes. Grass carp, they change the ecological system also, sometimes with their excreta and their feeding habits also. So then coming to the genetic impact, that is another biggest impact. The integration through hybridization, which lead to sometimes it is called that hybridization good, but in case of if you look at fishes, very few successful hybrids are available. So most of the times there is loss, exactly the genetic loss. So in case of fishes, hybridization techniques so far is not much lucrative or beneficial. So then coming to the extinction due to hybridization, sometimes hybridization causes this unviable fishes also. So slowly they extinct. An example here, you can see the Apache trout and the Gila trout, two native species of USA, have faced extinction primarily due to their hybridization. So that is another thing. Then genetic impact, another is loss of desirable traits. Sometimes grew good traits, those are lost due to their hybridization. Then another is socio-economic impact. Introduction of the new species to a new biological systems, or so sometimes they cause like their acceptability, then replacing the native species. So social impact will be the how people they accept them. So that is there. Another thing, like when this example is like our devastating effect, widespread disease, it came to our native species like tiger shrimp and white shrimp. So that is also came through some of the this introduction of this species that causes. Now coming to the mitigation measures, how can we mitigate these problems? In a nutshell, I will just flag or highlight those some of the things, like conventional technique, easy, non-selective, and less expensive, but limited to closed environment. Then these includes physical netting, use of barriers, biocides, then natural enemies, predatory prey. Then modern techniques like more scientific and technical, selective and lasting effect, which has the genetic engineering tools, and then like chromosome alteration, then recombinant technology. These are the new advanced techniques which can be applied for mitigating these problem. So conventional measures, there are some measures like physical netting. Sometimes it is done in East Kolkata wetland also, removing and removing through netting. So sometimes effective when it is a control system, but sometimes in East Kolkata wetland also we see the water bodies are very huge, large. That time this doesn't work also. Even then use of barriers, sometimes this in river system, then screening in the water channel, then biocidal control using pesticides, then biological strategies, that is the predatory prey system. Sometimes like example, European eel was put to control the swampy crayfish in Netherlands. So that is the way, the conventional measures. Now coming to the modern techniques, mostly the genetic engineering tools, the sterile male technology, triploid production. So that means one set of chromosome are introduced in the fishes, extra set, so that sterile male are produced. So So this is another technique which can be used. Then another is super male or YY male production. So in case of Nile tilapia, common carp, these are the successful super males can be produced through these genetic engineering tools. Another technique is sex reversed Trojan female. Sometimes phenotyping females, they are the sex reverse Trojan female are produced from super males. Super males are introduced into the wild type invasive fish population. Then they are mated with the normal males, and then they produce all male progeny. So this is another technique. And then another technique is sterile feral technology. So this is a transgenic engineering tools. So this also can produce this and all male populations. Another is the female feral technology. This is also another transgenic systems. So which involves interrupting an aspect of development in female offspring through introduction of the lethal phenotype. So in this also when like here one example zebrafish, they were trying, but they showed that when the female mortality, females are only more dying when they are exposed to tetracycline. So that is the way, like female only will die, only male will survive. So this is another technology. Then modern techniques like Trojan female or Trojan gene approach. So in this also the genetic modification, it uses naturally occurring mutations and which is in a maternally inherited mitochondrial DNA to produce sterile male but not female. So that is successful in case of fruit fly, mouse, and European here. So another technique is the daughterless technology. So here this some of the gene blocking the gene and their expression. And then this fishes are converted to all male. So this way, although these techniques are advanced, still in infancy, but they have the potential to mitigate this kind of our this invasive alien problem. Another is CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing technique. Now you know this is an advanced technique through which the genome editing can be done, and then chromosome can be deleted. So the this removing Y chromosome, so which in case of the male, when XY male is Y is removed, then they become the X0 female. So this way these tools can be used for production of this fertile females. Then another is in case of decapods, neo-female technology, that androgenic gland, which is mainly secretes the insulin-like androgenic hormone. They are responsible for masculinization. So suppressing this gland and this hormone production, then all males will convert to the females. Genetically, they are males, but they act like female. They will reproduce also. So when they reproduce this neo-female, so they produce 100% males. So these are the techniques how we can produce the all male populations, which may in future or in later stage they cannot reproduce. So in a nutshell, so modern approaches, they have different benefits we can see. So but some of the concerns are also there. Their impact on native species genetics, then unintended consequences, then food chain impacts, impact on other species. So those are the things still to be studied this modern approach. So from this overall, I have some conclusion or suggestion which can be useful for management of this our problem. Like conventional approaches to control invasive species are less effective, relatively costly and non-selective, while modern approaches are little vice versa. But however, modern approaches are still in infant stages. Hence, for dealing the challenges of invasive alien species, strategies should be focused to abide all rules, regulation, and terms of references of international and national level. Then our national or state level biodiversity authority or board must be empowered to regulate the introduction of aquatic organisms, including fish, shrimp, and prawn, and country status paper. I was also going through some of the literature, but searching those, but I could find very handful of literature about these topics. So, country status paper along with the future scenario mapping on IS must be published and in local languages also for the knowledge of the every fisherman or related stakeholders. Then greater coordination, convergence, and synergy need to be built up among the officials dealing this our fisheries, water, resource, forest, so that some early warning or prediction can be provided. And then innovative biological technology adoption, that is to control the invasive species, must be first end. So with this looking at the our main major target is sustainable development goals, which are like target by 2030 by UN. There are 17 SDGs, among which related to fisheries and our aquatic system is DG 2, 12, and 14, conservation, then sustainable management, then hunger. So all this keeping in mind, so one slogan can be flagged that use exotic fish species conscientiously for aquaculture development and halt the erosion of native fish diversity. So with this, I conclude here, stop here myself. Thank you very much, and I am thankful to my head, Dr. Ghoshal from Kolkata Center, and my director, Dr. Ravi Shankar sir, for nominating me, and my scholar Shiva and two scientists from SIFA for their help in preparation of this presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for such an insightful presentation. Okay, so we already have questions pouring in the chat box. So now the session is open for interactive session. Firstly, okay, everyone is asking that whether they can get the presentation slide or not.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Let's see. We can give them.
Okay, so this is a really good news because most of our participants are scholars and students, so it would be very helpful for them. Now, if anyone has any question to Dr. Dishash, we can conduct a very brief interactive session. You can raise your hand and ask your question. Okay.
Someone, Elizabeth,
Miss
who
Elizabeth,
raised
actually,
hand.
she has asked the question in the chat box. If you have anything else to say, then you can unmute yourself.
কে করবে না অবশ্যই
Yeah, I think they have understood this topic very well and they are so mesmerized that there is no question in their mind. But to our participants, I would like to say that since the most of them are scholars and researchers, please don't hold yourself back. Use the most of this opportunity and ask the questions to our speakers. So if nobody has any question in mind, then I would like to ask something. Sir, you have talked about so many different ways of mitigating the problems with the invasive alien species. So, if you have to suggest one, the modern one or the conventional one, which would be more feasible for the local people, the normal fisherman to adopt, what would you suggest?
Actually, the species which are the permitted species in India, exotic species, if we look at the guidelines, always it is given that they should be cultured or they should be bred in a confined area. Okay, either in pond system or in tank system, not in the open water body. So that means in a control system, you can control them very well, their movement, everything. But when it come to the natural water body or large water body, that time it is the problem. So far these advanced techniques still those are in infancy stage. Application, no, some foreign countries they have made few of the techniques, but our this natural water body controlling them is very difficult once they escape to the. If you look at our this Phineas vanami brackish water, their guideline, coastal aquaculture authority guidelines are there. So they are telling the pond should be biosecured. That means no way this stream should escape to the natural water body. So that way we have to post some strict regulations for all the species, the exotic species, especially the invasive ones, which are not. Sometimes there are like both way are there. We are looking at the economic point of view. Another way is biodiversity and our
The
loss to the.
ecological part.
So sometimes economic benefit that surpass our other things. So when that happens, that time it is difficult. But the like our this sucker mouth, that is really menace. That fish has no value in our this system. So for them, now farmers themselves they understand that the problem. So for control water bodies, no problem. They can the physical barrier they can remove, or using the pesticide they can remove those easily. But open water body it is very difficult.
Thank you so much, sir. So, as we conclude these sessions, I would like to extend our gratitude once again to Dr. Biswas for generously sharing his expertise, and we truly appreciate your time and insights, sir. So, as Dr. Biswas
Thank you.
has already set the tone of today's webinar, we are eager to hear the perspective of our next speaker, Professor Kaushik Ghosh. So, with this, we will start our next technical session. Professor Kaushik Ghosh is a distinct professor of zoology at the University of Burdwan. With a postgraduate degree from the University of Burdwan in 1997, Professor Ghosh earned the PhD degree and the University Gold Medal for securing first class first position in zoology. He later received his PhD from Vishwabharati University in 2003. Serving since 2004, he is the professor and former head of the department, also holding the director role at the Rural Technology Center, leading the aquaculture lab. He focuses on the nutritional interference, unconventional plant resource utilization, and functional feed additives for fish growth and disease resistance. With 98 publications in esteemed journals, he actively contributes as a reviewer and editorial advisory board member. Professor Ghosh has successfully managed 6 research projects, mentored 10 students who have been earned their PhD degree under his guidance, and please join me in extending a warm welcome to Professor Ghosh. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon to one and all. And, and firstly, I think that it's an honor for me to be invited here to share a few words with the dignitaries and my beloved students present over here. Because I assume that many masters or PhD students are there in
Absolutely,
this
sir.
group. Uh, Thanks to CIFE Kolkata Center and also News for inviting me to a few words. And uh, big thanks to Dr. Biswas for beautifully presenting the main theme of this today's deliberation actually. So he has beautifully scripted it and beautifully presented it. And I think actually after the lecture of Dr. Biswas, very few things are left that I can share. But still, I consider that many students are there. So to present in lucid way, so the students can actually get the thing that what are the invasive alien species and how these were introduced and what kind of impact they have in our actually ecosystem and in the production system, and what can we do, how can we prevent this. So let me share my screen. Invasive alien aquatic species, facts and consequences. Although we are discussing about the aquatic species, but what do we really mean by the invasive alien species? Uh, Let us see something different from the fisheries or aquaculture. Now, can you identify these two pictures? I think that the students they will easily be
The participants can write the names in the chat box.
able to identify these two creatures. The first one, that is the Indian leopard, which is a vulnerable species at the present time. Yeah, definitely, sure. And the second one, I think you have heard the news that very African cheetah has been used in India. Okay, so can I easily distinguish between species that indigenous and which one is alien or exotic? There are many plants that are invasive alien. The fishes are no exception to that. So we are having many fish and other aquatic organisms that are actually invasive alien species. Now, what do we really mean by the invasive alien species? As it can be said that the alien species is considered to be a species that has been moved beyond their natural range of distribution. And if you see the IUCN definition, then they have said that the alien species that is become established in natural or semi-natural ecosystems or habitat and is an agent of change and threatens native biological diversity. That is the matter of concern today. And you can see that actually alien or exotic, that means definitely that has come from the different area, different geographical region, maybe from different continents, different country, and like on. But if you particularly want to know the meaning of invasive, invasive means that has the capacity to invade. And that invasion may be literally maybe from one geographical region to another geographical region, and rather one ecological system, one ecosystem to the another ecosystem also. So you know that invasive species, maybe you know that there are some indigenous species also that may have the capacity to invade to the other actually ecological regions. In the second slide, you can see that two creatures are there, and as I said that I think the students can easily identify I think these two creatures. The first one is the Indian leopard that is indigenous to India, and it is a vulnerable species today. And the second one is the African cheetah that has been very recently introduced in India. And I think you can assume the difference between the indigenous species and the exotic species. So South African cheetah is alien and exotic to India, and rather Indian leopard is indigenous to India. So like these two, you will see that there are many organisms, many plants, many insects, many other animals, and also the fishes are also no exception to this, that were introduced in India from abroad, from different countries. And not only that, you will see that many of the species from India were also introduced to other areas or the other countries, and that may be considered as the exotic to them. So, what do we mean by the invasive alien species? Actually, invasive alien species are the species that can be considered that they have moved beyond their natural range of distribution. If you see the IUCN 2000 definition of the invasive alien species, then they have rightly pointed out that an alien species that becomes established in natural or semi-natural ecosystems or habitat, that is an agent of change. That means that has the capacity to alter the things, that has the capacity to change the things, and threatens the native biological diversity. That is the matter of concern to us. Now, if you see the introductions of the alien species, then you will find that these introductions are sometimes purposeful introductions, because for some specific reason the species were introduced. Like if you say the example of the African cheetah, so it was purposefully introduced. Yes, there could be a debate regarding the logical things behind this decision, but the introduction was purposeful. The policy decision was prepared by the ministry. It got approval from the Supreme Court, and after that, it was introduced in India. So this can be an example of the purposeful introduction. Yes, we will see that some fish species were also introduced purposefully, and you will see that some other species were introduced inadvertently or unknowingly. And the matter of concern to us, that is many of the species you will see that were introduced illegally or unauthorized introductions. Now, if you see the next slide, then why actually these species were introduced, and what are the species, if we see the invasive alien fish species, were introduced. Now you will see the fish species that may have potential for small scale artisanal fisheries that were introduced. The fish species that has the potential to increase the aquaculture production, that were introduced as the food fishes. Many of the fish species were introduced as the ornamental fishes, and very few we will see that were introduced as the larvicidal fishes to control the mosquito larvae. Now, as we can see that there are many fish species in India that are aquaculturally important and very important food fishes to us. Then why did we need to include some other fish species as food fishes? If we want to search the reason could be again one and only to increase the aquaculture production, to increase the stock. And if you see the comments of TVR Pillai, the very well-known actually fisheries scientist and author of the aquaculture book, I think that is being taught in different universities and institutes where fisheries science is there. The book of aquaculture, TVR Pillai. He said that bulk of these introductions was for the purpose of food fish production, and it was a post Second World War phenomenon. But we will see that many of the fish species were introduced during the British Raj also, before the Second World War, and definitely many of the fish species were introduced after the Second World War. And actually, the countries are still in a growth phase for the development of the aquaculture sector and also the associated technologies. And that's why many countries will see that they were introduced, actually, the different fish species, maybe, as experimentation purpose. And For India, you will see that suppose if you see the Chinese carps were introduced to utilize the all vacant trophic niche. Ecological niche is very important, as you know, to utilize the all available ecological niche to develop the composite fish culture. The Chinese carps were introduced. And definitely another idea was there, that is the diversification of aquaculture. And to diversify the aquaculture, you need to broaden the species spectrum. And at the same time, by diversifying the aquaculture, by broadening the species spectrum, you can increase the aquaculture production. Now let us see some historical perspectives of the alien species introductions in India. Firstly, we will see that what are the food fishes that were introduced. In India, you will see the first invasive alien species that were introduced, that is the trout. Trout was introduced in India during the British period in the year 1863. And actually, they used trout as a game fish. They introduced trout in the hill stations and for the angling purposes. So that was a game fish to them. And you know about the rainbow trout. The first picture that will show you the figure of the rainbow trout, Oncorhynchus mycis, and the brown trout, that is the second one, the Salmo tutaferio. And now you will see the brown trout is very well established in the states of Jammu and Kashmir. And now you will see that these trout species are re-established in the different states of India, including the Uttarakhand, Arunachal Pradesh, and also in the Tamil Nadu at the Nilgiri Hills. And later you will see the brook trout, the last one picture you will see the brook trout that has also been adopted for the aquaculture purpose in the Himachal Pradesh and Jammu and Kashmir. Now, if we continue by this way with the next slide, please. Then you can see that the Prussian carps of the different strains, different varieties of the common carp, Cyprinus carpio. As you all know, that Cyprinus carpio is the common carp, but there are different varieties. Cyprinus carpio variety communis, that is well known as scale carp. That is the common carp we can see in and around us. Actually, mostly it is seen. The second one you can see, that is the mirror carp, that is the Cyprinus carpio variety specularis. You will see that very large and irregular scales. They can be characterized by the large and irregular scales. And the third one, that is the leather carp, very major scales are there. That is Cyprinus carpio variety nudus. And those were introduced from Sri Lanka in the year 1939. And after that, in the year 1952, we can see that tilapia, first tilapine species were introduced in India. That is the Oreochromis mozambicus. And that was introduced in the pond and different reservoirs of South India. But at present, you will see that Oreochromis niloticus, another species, that is the Nile tilapia, that is actually particularly playing a very significant role in the production improvement in the Asian aquaculture. And that is dominated in the different natural water bodies in India and also the surrounding areas. Later, you can see that in the year 1957, a Bangkok strain of the common carp, that is Cyprinus carpio again, and also the silver carp, that is Hypophthalmictus mollitrix, that were brought to India. And after that, 2 years later, you can see that in the year 1959, the Tinopharyngodon idella, that is the grass carp, that was firstly introduced to control the weeds in the natural aquatic bodies. Okay. And later on, if you see that this introduction of this Chinese carp really actually, the revolutionized the aquaculture sector, because with the introduction of this Chinese carp, we could use the three different strata of the, aquatic body. And, that along with the Indian major carps, that is the Rohu, Katla and Regal, the introduction of the common carp, grass carp and the silver carp, that actually led us a different technology, that is the composite fish culture technology, and that is still very popular and that is still very well utilized across the country, and that is contributing years after years for the production improvement in the aquaculture water bodies. But later you will see that another, that putti, that is silver barb, that we can say that is the Java putti, Puntias gonionotus, that was also introduced in India from Indonesia in the year 1972. and the intention was to control the aquatic weeds again. So after introduction of the grass carp, again the Java putty was introduced with the intention of the control of the aquatic weeds. And very recently, you can see that in the year 2003, a shrimp species that was introduced. Although shrimp species was the Lithopenes vinami, that is the white leg shrimp, was available to India in the year 2001, but ultimately it was approved by the government and introduced as a candidate species for aquaculture in the year 2003. And you can see that Dr. Viswas has rightly pointed out the different properties of the invasive species, that why the invasive species they got popularization, they are popularized so much because definitely they are having some qualities. And if you compare the native shrimp species, that is the Peneus mononon, and the Lithopenes venami, that is the white leg shrimp, then definitely we'll see that the Lithopenes venami can be stocked at a high stocking density. They are having the higher growth rate. They are having the better tolerance to the different, water condition, aquatic condition, and they are having very high rate of survivability also. And that's why ultimately when the shrimp farming was facing a challenge of the white spot syndrome virus, at that time, the farmers thought that the introduction of the Lithopenes venami was blessings to them, and that ultimately actually showed them some way so that they can make some profit out of this shrimp culture. Now let us see with the another group of fish, that is the alien ornamental fish species. And you will see that the ornamental fish trade in India is dominated by the alien fish species. Many of the fish species that you are regularly keeping in your aquarium, that are exotic and the alien species. And at present, you will see that more than 200 alien aquarium fish species are available. These are breed regularly in different parts of the country, that are being marketed, that are actually providing the livelihood option to the different rural community, and ultimately it is contributing to the growth of the GDP also. So it is really a question that can we avoid the use of these ornamental fish species. Now the concern is that the gene pool of this alien ornamental fish species is continuously expanding, as the aquaculture industry or the ornamental fish industry that always actually searching for the new or the potentially popular species, and they are always looking for the genetic improvements and the mutations. And what happens, you will see that the most of these aquatic ornamental fish species, they are either tropical or subtropical in nature, and they are very well suited to the Indian agroclimatic conditions. And so that's why it's a challenge that they are actually dominating the Indian actually ornamental fish production sector also. A series of invasion has already been occurred with the ornamental fish species. And the next one you will see, that is the larvicidal fishes. The two most commonly well-known larvicidal fishes are there. That is the first one is guppy, as you all know, that is the Boesilla reticulata. And second one is very well known as the mosquito fish, that is the Gambusia affinis. And but both these two are exotic fishes. So we actually, they ignored the Apochilus and we invited the Boesilla and Gambusia to our ecosystem for the control of the mosquito larvae. Next one. Now let us look into the unauthorized and illegal fish introductions. What are the unauthorized and illegal fish introductions? You know that our neighboring countries are creating actually a threat to us. The Bangladesh and Nepal, there are open corridors, you see, and also there are some species that has been actually came to India from the Thailand also. And if I want to mention the fish species specifically, that is definitely the African magur, that is the Clarias geripinus. Another one, that is the Pangasiodon hypothalamus. Aristichthys nobilis, that is the big head. The third one you can see, that is Aristichthys nobilis, is the big head. Oreoctomis niloticus, I have already mentioned. And another one, that is the Pyarectus, that is very well known as the Paku. All these fish species has been very secretly smuggled to India, and these are being very well cultivated at different regions, and all these are unauthorized and illegal. These unauthorized introductions have achieved popularity in aquaculture because actually specifically that they are having very good production potential, and that they can utilize the different types of actually food, the different types of substances as their food. Suppose for the Clarias garipinus, the slaughterhouse wastages are very well utilized for their food. So ultimately, in the one hand, you can utilize the slaughterhouse wastage and you are having the production of the Clarias garipinus. So it's very difficult to actually restrict the farmers to actually return them back to the Clarias batrachus culture, other than the Clarias garipinus culture. And now you'll see that these are very well distributed across the different actually states in India. Now let me say a few words regarding their impact, very specifically. If you see, first of all, I will actually mention few categories of the impact of the invasive alien species. First of all, there is the basic species introduction. If you see the basic species interaction, there are two basic interactions, two kinds of basic interaction. That is, one is predation, another one is competition. If you take the example of the predation, just you see the Clarias garipinus resulted in around 80% loss to the carp when introduced in the carp polyculture. So this is the result of the predation. And even a critically declining bird that was also found in the gut of the Clarias garipinus, and it has been reported in 2009. A 67 centimeter long Clarias garipinus that has captured a bird that is critically murren, that is a critically endangered bird. So you can see that how voracious feeder they are. So not only the regular fish that are available, indigenous fish that are available in the aquaculture system in the natural water bodies, so they can feed on anything that can be available to them. So this is the voracious nature of the Clarias garipinus. And next one, that is the competition. Just you see, Aristichthys nobilis, big head, they negatively impacted the overall carp production. And actually, they competed with the katla. The katla, that is a very popular fish and very popularly produced fish today, but it can compete with the katla. Because you can see that both this katla and Aristichthys nobilis, they share the overlapping ecological niche, nearly same ecological niche. So that's why they are competing to each other. And ultimately, the result of competition, when it was reported that actually the Aristichthys nobilis is dominating over the katla, minimizing the production of the katla. Next one, ecological impact, habitat alteration. Very at the very beginning, that Dr. Ghosal very rightly pointed out about the habitat destruction or the habitat alteration. These invasive alien fish species can destroy the natural habitat. Introduction of the grass carp that resulted in the destruction of the submerged macrophytes. And that submerged macrophytes, to some extent, definitely at minimum level, they can shelter different natural food organisms. So in many culture systems, the minimum presence of these submerged macrophytes or the submerged, or some aquatic weeds also, these are actually desirable. But that introduction of the grass carp that resulted in the destruction of the submerged macrophytes. Tilapia, you will see that tilapia is abundantly present not only in the ponds but also in the other natural water bodies like the river streams, in the river Ganga, in the river Yamuna. Everywhere you will find that abundance of tilapia. And these river systems are the natural breeding ground of our carp population, native carp population. And the abundance of tilapia in the natural water body that causes disturbance to the spawning ground of the carps and ultimately declining their population in the natural water bodies. Now, the introduction of these alien fish species, ultimately you see that in every ecosystem you will find that there is a network, there is a food chain, there is a food web. So whenever some other species are introduced in this food chain or food web, then definitely either it is predating or it is competing. So that's why that it is actually destructing the normal food chain or the normal food web, and ultimately its effect will go on the natural things, that is the indigenous species that are present over here, any of the things, The common carp that actually results the removal of the, sorry, please, the previous one. The common carp, you will see that actually it can cause the removal of the vegetation by direct consumption and uprooting the vegetation. And that's why ultimately they increases the turbidity of the water. So ultimately the aquatic water body is changing due to the presence of these invasive alien species. The spread of these alien species, ultimately they are associated with the drop of the local fish biodiversity and ultimately causing the significant losses to the aquaculture system. Next one. Now let us see the impact of the invasive alien fish species on the production of some other fish species, very precious fish species. Like suppose tilapia have shown that it can have a substantial part of production, up to 25% as it has been reported, of the catch in many reservoirs of Kerala. And you know that it is resulting in the poor growth or even elimination of some indigenous fish species. Look at this species. This is called the Deccan hilsa, changos, milkfish, a very popular fish, and you know that is a very relished by the people who love to eat the fish. But the growth of changos was restricted, the milkfish was restricted to less than 100 gram per year compared to usually 500 gram per year. That means 5 times, restriction or retardation of the growth was resulted when tilapia was present in the aquatic body. So you can see that what could be the effect on the native fish species. And invasion of the tilapia was noted in the lakes of the Rajasthan also, where it outcompeted with the local species and also resulted in this kind of phenomenal reduction in the average weight of the native carp species. Next. You see that Mahasir, golden Mahasir, there is a tor putitora. Mahasir is a very well-known fish. If you see the hill streams in the Uttarakhand or the Kashmir, you will see the Mahasir. But you know that increased population of the carp in the natural water bodies have negatively impacted on the catches of the local Mahasir. I don't know that you have visited the Nainital and Bhimtal or these areas also. If you visit these areas, then you will find the lakes of the Nainital and Bhimtals. These are populated with many common carp only, Cyprinus carpio. But now, ultimately, the local inhabitants there, that is the tor putitora or the trouts, they are facing the problem. They are facing the competition. They are actually, the Cyprinus carpio is actually out competing them there. Both Cyprinus carpio and Oreoptomys niloticus have been found to dominate in the commercial catches of the Ganga river also. Here you can see that I can show you a data that is given by Singh and Lakda. There is a comparison between 2004 and 2009. It's very long back, but still you can see that the production of the exotic species actually, dominated over the production of the local fish species in the Ganga in the year 2009. I think you know that if you take the picture of 2022, then definitely far increase in the production of the exotic fish species you will be able to note here. Now the similar phenomenon was found in the river Jamuna, where commercial catches was dominated by the presence of the alien fish species, maybe the Cyprinus carpio, Oreoptomys niloticus, and also to some extent Clarias garipinus was there. If you see the few specimen, there is a case study you can see that only few specimen was released of the silver carp was released in the Govindasagar reservoir of the Himachal Pradesh during the transportation. It was accidental introduction actually, accidental introduction of silver carp in the Govindasagar lake. But ultimately, what that is done, you can see that now it is the most dominant fishery in the Govindasagar reservoir, accounting for more than 80%. That is the silver carp production, and other fish species only 20%. Next. Now you see the genetic impact, very important. Two things are very important. One thing that is hybridization, and second thing that is the integration. If you see the hybridization, you see the African catfish, that is the Clarias garipinus, was introduced in Thailand and Vietnam, and they hybridize it with the local population there, that is the Clarias macrocephalus in Thailand. and they noticed that these Cladius gariepinus and Macrocephalus hybrid can be well cultured in their aquatic system. And ultimately, you see that that has also came to India. The similar phenomenon occurred in Bangladesh. The Cladius batrachus hybridized with Cladius gariepinus, and in the market you will see, now if you see the Cladius species that is available in the market, you won't be able to detect it whether it is batrachus or Cladius gariepinus. There is evidence of Parvez et al. 2022. I have cited over here. You can see that many of the species, the main point of identification that is actually, the occipital process. If you see the occipital process, you won't be able to see this blunt or pointed occipital process over there. Maybe something in between. So it appears that it could be a result of hybridization. So ultimately, the hybridization is contaminating the natural gene pool. So this is a matter of concern. And second thing, that is the integration. So what happens actually when this kind of factors, that is predation, competition, disease transmission from the exotic species, that can affect the native fish population, then what happens, that eventually compel the native fish population for the inbreeding. And I think the students, you might be knowing about the fact that is the inbreeding depression. So if the population is inbred continuously, then ultimately giving rise to a weaker stock of the population. And ultimately, they are facing the danger of extinction. So this kind of genetic changes are being occurred, and that is a threat to the biodiversity. Next, please. Here I will say that some diseases or pathogens, you will see that many of the transboundary diseases, I think the term is very well known to you, there's the transboundary diseases. So these transboundary diseases can be transmitted by the introduction of the invasive alien fish species. It has been reported that some metazoan parasites have been transmitted, and emphasis has been given to the bacterial and the viral pathogens also. As you all noted that there was a tremendous expansion of the Lithopenes venami culture, and initially it was stated that these are actually, the disease-free stocks, but the stocks that have been cultured widely and unauthorizedly in different sectors, there is a doubt that really these are disease resistant or not, because many of the diseases are noted in the Lithopenes venami culture. Even white spot syndrome virus, that is supposed not to be there in the Lithopenes venami, because you know that usually the Penis monodon, they are susceptible to these DNA-based viruses, that is the white spot syndrome virus. But the Lithopenes venami, initially it was detected that they are not very much susceptible to the DNA viruses, rather RNA viruses could be there. Suppose the Tora syndrome virus, TSV, that is the RNA viruses. But now you can see that both the DNA and the RNA viruses, these are being transmitted to the venami culture also. Okay, so there is a threat. Next, please. Next. And you see that it has been reported that although you all know about the importance of the mangroves in the Sundarban region, and the shrimp farming would be the major reason for the destruction of the mangroves. Shrimp farming would be the major reason for the destruction of the mangroves, apart from the natural calamities, definitely. Okay. And it has been reported that over 4,000 species are actually, are taking shelter in this mangrove ecosystem. And with the destruction of this mangrove ecosystem, not only the regular aquatic species, but many of the organisms, they are actually facing the threat of extinction due to the damage to this mangrove ecosystem. And ultimately, now we have reached at a situation right now that as Phineas monodon culture was actually, that faced some problems during the during the year 95 or 2000. Now this unregulated farming of Phineas venami farming also, I think it is going to the same path. Ultimately, that as we see in case of the Phineas monodon. Next, please. So now let me conclude that what can be done? What should we do? So we have tried to understand that what are the invasive alien fish species, why these invasive alien fish species were introduced, and ultimately what could be the impact of the invasive alien species. But now let us think that what should we do? What can be done? Now you see that under the Convention of Biological Diversity (CBD), it was duly mentioned that it is the duty of the each nation and state to prevent the spread of any invasive alien species that can be harmful to the fish diversity and the aquatic ecosystem. Are we doing this? But to do these things, to evaluate these things, firstly, what we need, that is, we need sufficient information on the biology of the invasive alien species. And this is the area, I think, where the scientists can contribute to work out the biology precisely for each and every alien species that is available to the Indian continent. And after that, definitely there is an urgent need to regulate the illegal entry of these alien species. And each of these alien species should pass through a risk assessment trial. And you see that this risk assessment trial should be consisting of the probability of establishment. That means if it may be escape to the natural water bodies, then what are the probabilities for their establishment in the natural condition? And after that, the consequences of establishment. If it is established in the natural water bodies, then what would be their consequences? So you know that from IUCN there is a specific guideline for that, and we need to assess each and every alien species, particularly for this risk assessment. And ultimately, for our country, I think you know that actually you will see that many of the times we frame some rules, but we are very reluctant about the application of these rules, implementation of the rules. But this should not be continued. A comprehensive biosecurity policy should be adopted, as you will see that many of the countries like the New Zealand, Australia, US, Hungary, they have developed some biosecurity policies. So for India, we need to develop, we need to adopt some specific biosecurity policies. And there are, you know, that there is the National Committee for the Introduction of the Exotic Aquatic Species in Indian waters that has been developed under the Union Ministry of Agriculture, and it is their duty to check and regulate the importation of the alien species in India from the other countries. And lastly, I will say that we need to set a guideline, a national guideline for each and every cultivable alien species in India. It has been done partially. It has been done for Niloticus, Oreoctomis niloticus. It has been done for Lithopinias venami, but not for the other species. But many other species that are still available in India and that are being cultured in India, but we need to develop the set of national guidelines for each and every alien species. And lastly, I will say, we said many things about the sustainable aquaculture, but now not only sustainable aquaculture, we need to focus on the responsible aquaculture. We need to be responsible. We need to play a very responsible role for the aquaculture. So with this, then I will conclude with some other popular things actually. This is actually very well noted and very well mentioned by both Dr. Ghosal and Dr. Biswas. Sucker mouth armored catfish that is abundantly found now in different water bodies, in ponds, in rivers, and so on. You'll see. So this is, you know, a threat of today. Next one, we will see that another one, that is the alligator gar. Can you imagine that it is an American strain, alligator gar, and it is reported in 2018 from Kerala after the flood. It has been reported in the different states like West Bengal, in Katwa, Odisha, Maharashtra, and even in the Dal Lake, Jammu and Kashmir. Can you imagine? That alligator gar has been detected in Dal Lake. Why? How? We don't have any answer to this. How it has been released there. But you can see that this is a voraciously carnivorous fish. So if it is present in the riverine system, now it is a massive threat to the all available population in the riverine system. And the next one, and the last one, red-bellied piranha, Pygocentrus. Anywhere we will find that it is cultured in aquarium. And I don't know that you have seen the latest movie by Srijit Mukherjee or not. that is Dasam Avatar, and you will see that very beautifully scripted movie, I think, where this red-bellied piranha was used to kill a person in that movie. If you have seen, you can realize the things. If you have not seen, you can see it. Okay. And not only this piranha is available in India, but the paku. I was telling about the Pyrectus, the Kipomas. That is the paku. This is a very close relative to this piranha, the same family. The very close relative to this, and it is widely being cultured in India in different states. So this is the scenario. So with these few things, so a big thanks to all of you that, uh, uh, and I think I maybe excuse for some technical problems that happened to my connectivity, and thanks to all for listen hearing, and thank you all. If there is any question, I will be happy to answer.
At all, sir. That is
Please.
not an issue at all. Okay, thank you so much, sir, for your insightful and thought-provoking talk. And now the topic is open for further discussion. I think we already have a couple of questions in the chat box.
And
Okay.
one thing I can say that if students require, I have also shared the PDF copy of my lecture, and it is prepared for the students. So that's why you can easily share to the students the PDF copy.
And here the teacher is talking now. So we have the presentation with us and we'll share it with the participants also. So someone has asked, I don't think the name is his or her actual name, Raiso RB. Is the migrated fish species is also known as invasive species? No, it is
Yes,
not,
yes,
but
definitely. Yes, yes,
not
yes. No,
always.
no. Yes, yes. Not always, but no, no,
Yeah.
not regularly migrated species.
Yes.
Not regularly migrated species, because you see that after the natural calamities, like the the different the Aila, Amphan, and many of these natural calamities, you will find that some unnatural species they are being also migrated to the different regions. So these kind of migrations, if you can notice, this can be termed as invasive definitely. If they can actually establish themselves to the new system, new ecosystem, they can be termed. But not the regularly like the hilsa. Hilsa is not an invasive species. It is very well known to our continent.
Okay, so we can see that Ajanta madam has raised her hand. Ma'am, please.
Okay, thank you, both of you. It
Yes,
was
madam.
excellent hearing to you. I have one question that when an exotic species like fish species is introduced in the aquaculture area, do the policymakers do not get any validation from the SIFI or the institutes, the scientific institutes. So because without the validation, how can they do this? So that is one my question. And second is that you talked about the national guidelines. So there doesn't that means it the national guidelines presently do not exist for the
Exists
introduced.
for two species only. So far I know that for two species there are some guidelines, but not for the other alien species.
Okay, and it is not mandatory for the fisheries department to have the validation from the CIFI or others before they introduce this any exotic alien species in the system, aquaculture system.
I think Dr. Gosal and Dr. Biswas will be able to answer properly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, so may I respond?
Sure, sir.
Yes, sure.
Please.
Yeah. So, especially for new species introduction to our country, so there is bodies, government of India, they every time they make a committee like NVFGR, National Bureau of Fish Genetic Resources. They will be the main institute, and along with that, the institute which are working on that area, they will be the members for field trials and all. So that's the way impact is assessed initially. Then only government of India gives the permission for the introduction. Likewise, the same rule applied in case of this Pineus venami and also this Nile tilapia when the gift is introduced. So for these two species, there are clear-cut guidelines for their culture, breeding, and propagation in India by Government of India. They have guidelines. So for other species which are introduced very previously, like our these exotic carps and all, that time that history I don't know. I don't know exactly.
Anyway, so to supplement Dr. Vishwas, our country, yeah, rules, regulations, everything is there. Very clear rules, regulations there. I think our first species, the Pineus venami, that has been introduced with so much precautions, with so much these things, trials, quarantine measures, everything has been these things because SIM is the major industry and sector also because it is an export item. So we gave a lot of guidelines, coastal aquaculture authority guidelines, and farmers has to maintain all the things is there in rules there, and in rule in coastal aquaculture authority, all the state government that concerned district magistrate DM, he is one of the main authority. That is by rules it is there for Dhanami. So, but most of the alien species, what we know has been introduced, that is unintentionally because somehow in trade procedure of aquaculture trade or some our ornamental industry like suckermouth catfish, of course Carias Garipinias, some purpose was there. It is a very fast growing, so farmers were getting a lot of profits. So that way most of the things has been introduced in India without notice to the government of India. And as our country Puras borderline and these things that not much stringent regulations are not there. So that's why most of the alien species has been introduced. And but what Dr. Bishwas there now are only 2-3 species that guidelines is there. And grass carp, common carp, that has been introduced with specific mission to improve the productivity. So that's a very big concern. So now I think time has come. Time has come. We have to tighten knot, and definitely government of India always thinking NVFGR and concerned all fisheries institutes. They are thinking in this line. So somebody has to tie a knot, and maybe this is the one of the beginning. Okay, so some guidelines should be there for introduction of the any exotic species, any alien species, and then as we told that data, research things, and whether that alien species invasive, whether that is doing damage to our ecosystem. So it is a long time consuming process. So anyway, so definitely we have to address this issue. Our ICR, government of India, with the new ministry, Ministry of Fisheries, and has been driving new ministry in the center. There is very much proactive role now. This is a new ministry. In center there was no separate ministry for fisheries. So now new ministry. So definitely ministry is thinking, and so many guidelines are also coming in state governments. So slowly, definitely things will be improved. They will improve. And as you know, fisheries is a new subject. Fisheries, commercial aquaculture, commercial fisheries only 40-50 years compared to our animal science and then agriculture. It is started from British era. But ours is first fishery college in 1969. So it is a very new these things that were developed that science. So slowly, definitely things will come. We are optimistic, and definitely NVFG are there. They are thinking this thing seriously on this issue, and all our NGO like News, our CIFE. Of course, CIFE is an academic institution, so nobody bothers that CIFE will be any pieces introduced with CIFE will be these things. So definitely some things will be taken care of, I think, madam. So there is these things. It will be done.
Another thing, Clarias garipinus is a banned species. Government of India banned this species long back. So there is separate order,
Yeah.
and every state is following that.
Yeah, so that also in later stage, after a few years, we after seeing the consequences, it is in banned. But till now, farmers are getting, they are doing, so they are getting profit. That type of guidelines is not there. That type of means like our Hilsa or in Bangladesh, they do conserve the
Farmers are
fish.
getting from Bangladesh.
Yeah,
Garipinus is banned here, but farmers are getting from Bangladesh.
yeah, but same way you see, Hilsa is conserved in Bangladesh. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
each state, each country is having their own policy. Okay, so your own policy is there. So our policy is to ban our Garipinians definitely, but that type of stringent punishment and rules because it is a state subject.
Yes, yes.
Ultimately, this is
Implementation
takes
of
some
the
time.
policy is more important.
Yeah,
Implementation
policy
of
is
the
more
policy is
important,
very important.
and policy, and then policy
Policy is
implementation
there.
of the policy.
Policy are there.
Implementation of the policy, yeah, that implementation, then
Implementation of the policy is
stringent punishment procedures, all the things should be in place. Then definitely will be our definitely say things will come.
Do you
yes.
think that on the ornamental fish side, we need to publish more awareness flyers, this and that, because ornamental fish is something which is going unnoticed, and as I understood from your deliberations, that it is creating a lot of hazards in the aquatic ecosystem.
No, but only thing is that ornamental fish, it is not going to the of course, not open waters. It is not that much. But anyway, the industry is going. Industry is going. So definitely, we have to think how to dispose of the bigger size ornamental fish. A lot of, and all are exotic species. So we don't know whether they are invasive or not. Or how much they will
Actually,
sustain in the,
actually, if these are produced in captivity,
yeah,
then there should not be any problem.
yeah,
But the problem is with the escapees.
yeah,
We don't know that whether it will be escaped or not.
yeah.
That is the problem. Even if you culture Carius gariepinus in captivity
And that is not,
and don't allow it to go out to the natural water bodies,
yeah.
then you can do it.
That is the policy, no?
But
That's
the
the policy
problem
we
is that,
cannot.
yes, that is the problem. And that is very, but actually, you see that suppose flood, who can resist? You are culturing in a pond, and there is a flood. Ultimately, everything washed out. So everything will be released to the nature.
Yeah, yeah.
This is the problem.
Okay, so if we don't have any questions, okay, I am not seeing any hands here. So we can take this interactive session to a close. And a quick round of announcements for the participants. We have provided a link in the chat box, a link for the feedback. Please fill in the feedback form and mark whether you want an e-certificate or not. And also for those who would like to get the presentations from our speakers, please note it down in the comment section of the feedback form. Okay. So, as the saying goes, all good things end soon. So, now here we are at the end of this webinar. My deepest gratitude to all the speakers, our esteemed speakers, for this dynamic exchange, and the colleagues at news, and of course, the participants. Today has been a day of shared insights, collaborative spirit, and a renewed commitment to the vision of sustainable aquaculture. So, with this, I would like to request our Director of Fisheries and Animal Husbandry Division News, Mr. Milan Sinha, to conclude the session with an aquatic advocacy address and the formal vote of thanks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dola. We have come across a very vibrant session, and with the very eminent speakers from. So, if we summarize this discussion, that we will find that indiscriminate introduction of invasive alien species, legally or illegally, might cause adverse impact in the aquaculture sector, though it may provide some initial beneficial effect. And that with that negative outcome, impact outcomes, whatever we discuss, whatever we receive from we learn from the speakers, that change gene pool and integration, habitat alteration, modification of natural benthic community, modification of natural regime, of nutrient regime, and threat to the native species. And the impact mechanism is that the competition, monopolizing the resources, and the disease transmission in the main. So we have to fight out the, we'll have to develop a policy. So speakers have told, and the in keynote address, Ajanta has also asked, eminent speakers has also advised. So we hope this webinar would aware us about the indiscriminate introduction of the invasive alien species. We need an initiative to formulate a policy at national level for introduction of invasive alien species, and in alignment with the Convention of the Biological Diversity. To evolve this policy, we think that a multi-stakeholder partnership is needed, and a multi-stakeholder partnership platform should be launched, integrating scientists, researchers, academia, and CSO activists, environmental activists, and of course the practicing farmers, so that a stringent biosecurity measures is in place and the introduction is reviewed in a national level before the introduction of invasive alien species. And with that, I would like to thank the Central Institute of Fisheries Education Authority and the Vice Chancellor and the Director, Dr. Ravi Shankar, for giving us the permission to jointly organize this webinar. Thanks also the eminent speakers from there, Dr. T.K. Ghoshal and Dr. Gaurang Vishesh. We thank for their insightful lectures. We thank Professor Kaushik Ghosh of Bardhaman University for enriching us with his valuable and professional lecture in the topic. I express my heartiest gratitude to the participants, and ranging from scientists, researchers, students, and the CSO activists and others. And at last, not the least, I convey my thanks to the Secretary and the Joint Secretary of our organization, Mr. Bishwajit Raichudhary and Mr. Ajanta Dev, for encouraging us and permitting us to organize such a webinar, and my colleagues who are engaged in organizing this, especially to Dola, because Dola has first pointed out the program and we then organized it by team. So thanks to all for your kind presence and for your contribution, and we hope that in future we'll collaborate again to make a roadmap on the invasive alien species. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So with this, we would end this meeting now. Thank you all for your time and
Thank you.
patience.
Thank you.
Thank you.